Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nerdettes Newsstand, and me and Bianca are back for another Bad Ideas. We are going to let Pride take over, and we are going to talk about our favorite LGBTQ characters. And we have a top five. I may have snuck in a little extra in there just because, I had to. I had to. How are you today, Bianca?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am good. Yeah, I kind of went the whole way of they were a couple, they were just one person. I'm not gonna lie. I just had to.
Me too.
Yes, I love it. Okay, I'm like, I know I can sneak people in here because there's so many. Like when I
they're
was
just
making,
they're just one.
yes, exactly. When I was making this list, I'm like, how do I narrow it down to five? Like there are iconic ones you need to talk about, but then again, they necessarily aren't my favorite. So I had like people on the outside like Extrano and the Question, who didn't make my list, but I'm like, they're still so great. What do I do? So I snuck a couple extra. I just couldn't help it. Yes. Do you want to go for mine? Are I'm not gonna lie, mine are all centered to comics. All centered to comics.
I realized I had too much. There's only five, and I'm like, I feel like I have too much manga people. So I'm like, okay, let me refresh. Let me go to Google and see who is LGBT again. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Of course, I love them. So I added them on there.
I actually in another that was another one I wanted to add that I didn't just because he's newly queer, which was John Kent. So I wanted to add him, but I'm like, he hasn't earned his queer stripes like some of the other ones have. I can't do it. I can't. But he is a good character, so I thought I'd mention him. So yeah, go ahead and go first. Who do you have?
I have Sailor Uranus from Sailor Moon.
Ah, good one. I didn't even think about that.
Because you suck. I'm just
I
kidding.
know, right?
I only watched the '90s Sailor Moon. I didn't watch the reboot yet. Um, so I don't know how she acts in the reboot. If it's similar or whatever. I think I it should be kind of similar. I just
Right.
like her whole attitude. She has this like very tough exterior, but she also cares. And I don't know. I just like the fighty girls, which is why I like Sailor Uranus and Sailor Jupiter.
Hmm.
But Sailor Uranus is a lesbian, so so she's
Was she
attitude girl.
explicitly a lesbian in the show? I don't remember.
I mean, in the Japanese, she was in the Toonami version, and the like the you no, not the Toonami version, the Four Kids. It was one of the dubs. One of the dubs, kind of like censored it and made her and her girlfriend cousins, and so
What?
they
Oh
had to.
yes, that's what happened. It's so weird. Like, think of the children type people upset that they have to make them related. That makes it so much weirder.
So they later on, literally after I finished watching it a few years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm finally finished watching this crap. I'm not going into the Sailor Moon SS or whatever the very last ones were. And then announcement, boom, it's getting a redub so it can be more accurate. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right
Oh
after
my
I freaking
gosh.
finished all of this, and I'm like, screw you guys. And then of course years later, the announcement for the reboot came, and I'm like, well, now there's a reboot, but the reboot's obviously following the manga this time. So a lot of people said that they did like it a lot more because of that.
See, I it's been so long since I watched it, I couldn't remember, but now I do remember that cousin thing. Like, there are a lot of things that the 90s did right with gay characters, but that was definitely not one of them. That was definitely not one of them. That's pretty funny. So,
I mean,
yes.
we got from the dub, we also got a riddle me this Batman quote from her.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh my god.
She's like, riddle me this Batman. I'm like, no, you didn't.
Oh, that's so good though. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Freaking dubs. Okay. So yes, I have and I had to this was when I was like, do I really want to include her? But I kind of have to because of all the controversy and all the stuff that initially was surrounding it, and that is Batwoman, Kate Kane, right? I love the J.H. Williams run of Batwoman. It is phenomenal. It was one of the most beautiful books at its time, and honestly, It's still beautiful to look at. I love Batwoman though because she was one of the more prominent queer characters early on. In I don't when did that run come out?
2011.
2011. Yeah, I was gonna say 8. Yeah, I'm way off. But then it took this. It did what I feel like it reached a happy medium with its viewer or its readership because there's a lot of people there on both sides of the aisle. People are like, I want the romance front and center, or I want the action front and center. And I feel like it did a really good job of kind of doing both in a way and making it really good. And then you've got the whole, her sister being Alice, who's fucking psycho, but still awesome at the same time. And I love like the callbacks to, Alice in Wonderland and all that fun stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of the big part around that is when I had J.H. Williams III on the show, it was so sad because he couldn't read any of the stuff after he got off the title and he ended up leaving because they wouldn't let her marry. Do you remember that whole controversy?
Yeah.
It was so sad. Like, DC Comics hates couples. Or no. Let me take that back. They hate married couples. And they just were like explicitly against it. And that was 10 years ago. Think about that. That's fucked up in my head that less than 10 years ago, they were against a gay couple getting married. Like, we've kind of come a long ways in some ways, but some ways not. But anyways, yeah, I love Kate Kane. I think she's a great character. Unfortunately, she's not used to her best ability right now. Like, she's kind of just, I don't even know what she's doing. She kind of comes in Detective Comics every once in a while. She showed up in Harley Quinn. Like, she just kind of floats around. And unfortunately, she should be getting her own title. But I love Kate Kane. She's awesome.
Was she also written by Steve Orlando at one time?
Yes, I believe so. Actually, Steve Orlando wrote a couple people on my list today. I love Steve Orlando. He does great with. Have you ever seen like his Killer Queens comic book? It's so funny.
Killer Queens. No, I heard of it though.
he writes gay characters so well. And I know he's bisexual himself. So I kind of get why he's able to write them, but damn, he does a good job. He'll be on my list again.
Okie dokie.
I like him. So who do you have next?
I have Nathan Seymour, whose superhero name is Fire Emblem from the anime Tiger and Bunny.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain this whole thing to me because I only know about 2 of those words.
Tiger and Bunny?
Yes. No, I have no idea who this is.
So Nathan is not the main cast. Tiger and Bunny is, obviously. Nathan's part of the supporting cast or whatever. So when you first see Nathan, you just think it's a guy who likes wearing pink and he's super feminine and flamboyant, and he's obviously gay because he likes men and likes touching guys inappropriately.
Oh, jeez.
But then, of course, later on, the author is like, oh, well, no, they're non-binary. And I'm like, they are? And so I'm like, okay, so I have to, like, because when I first heard that, I wasn't hearing or seeing anything that would, like, make that true.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so let me do, I was saying maybe I'll do some research before this and maybe like something new popped up. So for more evidence of the character being non-binary. And so they're like, okay, so when they talk in the Japanese version, they use watashi or atashi, which is when a female is addressing herself instead of boku, boku or ore, which is the guy version. And I'm like, okay, so they're using more feminine pronouns. But then there's also in the show, in the Japanese and English, where Nathan has said, I'm part of the girls,
Right.
And all that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, so And and I didn't see the second movie of Tiger and Bunny, but apparently the second movie shows their life, their trauma experience of being a kid in an all boys school, being attracted to boys, and also liking feminine things, which they were bullied for. So I'm like, okay. So after doing all that research, I'm like, so they are non-binary and they would prefer pronouns of they, them, or she, her, since they like to say how they're part of the female group and like hanging
Right.
out with the girls and all that stuff, likes being considered the big sister and all that stuff. But despite that, they're they're very fun. They're very wise. They try to be wise and all that stuff. They acknowledge that they are, obviously biologically male,
Right.
but feels more feminine and tries to use that as an example of themselves. He's like, men strong, women emotionally strong, but what if you're both? That's how they consider themselves. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that
And
actually
is
is.
literally one of the most powerful superheroes.
There you go. I think now that you talk about it a little bit, I think I have heard mention of the show. Or is it a show or is it a movie?
It's a show. There's a couple of movies out, and the second season just came out on Netflix, and I've been waiting since the early 2000s.
Wait, it took that long to produce a second season?
Yeah, it's been forever.
Ridiculous. Get on it.
I know. It's like I was like, maybe it's not as popular as I think it is to not get like a second season. Maybe the manga sales didn't go up or whatever. But we got the second season. It's on Netflix. Woo!
That's awesome. That's awesome. So next I have a Marvel character, right? I'm being totally diverse today. No, I'm just kidding. I have Carolina Dean. I love Carolina. Have you ever read any of the Runaways or even watched the show?
I know of that one character from the Runaways who's like a little girl, really strong, and she carried Wolverine on her shoulder.
Yes. What is her name? Oh my god, I can't think of her name. Yes, I know what you're talking about. But I love the Runaways. The Brian K. Vaughan stuff was so good. Even the Rainbow Rowell stuff was okay. But I love Carolina because she kind of went. Carolina's like, okay, every Becky ever. She's every popular girl ever. She's the prettiest. She's the biggest, name in town. She is everything that every girl wanted to be. She is not necessarily the meanness, but like Regina George. You know what I'm talking about? Like that popularity. And um, she goes through a bunch of shit. She has to wear this bracelet, and she ends up coming to find out both of her parents are actually aliens. But
Ooh.
she has her power is probably yeah, I'm gonna say it, the prettiest power of all of Marvel characters because it's all rainbow, and she's able to absorb the sun and use it in order to use these kind of light ray effects, but they're actually like, they actually do something. They're not just pretty. But Caroline is awesome. She started out, as the popular girl in high school, dating the popular boy in high school, or at least, will they, won't they kind of thing, and ended up dating the goth chick. Like, ended up realizing through a really good friendship that, yeah, she really wasn't into boys. She really wasn't. And it was kind of a weird thing because there was hints, but it took a while for it to come out, and you're like, yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense. She is able to be herself now. And I love her parents. Like, their last name is Dean, right? And it's all because they love James Dean, because they were these aliens, that came from I don't even remember, it's been too long, but they came down and ended up being stars on something very similar to like General Hospital, and they love like the celebrityism of it. And I don't know, she's a really good character. Unfortunately, they don't use the Runaways like they should anymore. Like, there's also, I know this isn't LGBTQ character, another character I love from the Runaways though is Gert, because there's all this talk about characters, or if it's woke or if it's not, or da 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 da. But Girk is this intersectional feminist that's so annoying but so perfect for the show. So you've got Runaways, you've got the popular boy, you've got the lesbian girl, you've got the intersectional feminist, you've got the kid that's stronger than everybody, and yet this works so well. And it's, I don't know, you've got to check out the Runaways. Have you ever even seen an trailer for the show?
No.
Well, I know what I will be sending you after we record. It is
Oh
really
no.
good. It expands upon the stuff that was done by Brian K. Vaughan in the original series, because the Runaways isn't that old. I would say the team, I want to say in the early 2000s. I don't remember exactly, but it expands upon a lot of the stuff that they talked about, and I love I don't normally like, one of the reasons I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, at least his early stuff, is because I'm not a big like schools and stories like these kids are in high school. It's just, maybe it's my age, but I've gotten to a point where I'm like, that's not a story for me. I'm a little too old. I'll wait, until they age up a little bit. This was the
Boo.
this is the first story though that I was like, it's cool. I like it. Like, I don't mind the high school aspect of it. I don't mind that they're really young. I don't mind that whole like, you know, um drama part of it that you see from those type of stories. And Carolina's the best in my opinion, just because, well, her powers are beautiful, but she has the deepest story because she goes from one extreme to the other. When she realizes she can take her bracelet off and become this like beautiful fucking, and I don't even know what to call her, enchantress type character, she realizes that she goes through so fucking much. Like, her dad is straight up evil, her real dad. Um and she kind of comes out the other side being the baddest of them all. I love Carolina. She's awesome. So who do you have next?
This is the pairing, one of my pairings that I have.
Oh,
Uh,
yay.
so this one is Kanamori and Konizuka from Psycho-Pass. They are a
Oh.
lesbian couple. Kanamori is a bisexual, but Konizuka is she is now considered after season 1 an experienced lesbian.
What's the difference between a lesbian and experienced lesbian? Or is that just how
The
they
actual experience.
Okay. All right. All right. She's the one that's better in bed, I'm assuming. Okay, go for it.
Uh, in the ending of season 1, you kind of see both of them without clothes. So like after her what's it called? After her character Wakey got updated to experienced, that's when they're like, oh, so that was her first time. Okay. Before
Oh,
she
wait, her character what got updated? Like, they actually have something that.
Wikipedia or like
Oh,
info
okay,
sheet,
okay, go
that
ahead.
kind of
Okay.
thing. So I have talked about Psycho-Pass before.
Yep.
Hominis I know loves Psycho-Pass buddies. Um so you have Kanamori, who is like she's like the info person, whatever you need to find, how you need to find it, and to find it fast. That's what her job is. And she loves her job. She loves older men and cute girls.
I
And
mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of ideal.
I mean, I don't know. That guy was like 30 years older than her. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's in her 30s, so like he's probably like 50s, something like that. So or like gray hair and everything.
She likes
uh
the salt and pepper hair.
yeah. And so she's just a fun character. She's so much fun, and I'm happy that Amazon Prime decided to take the season so we can have more content. One that was focusing on her and Kanizuka a little bit.
Wait, it's on Amazon Prime?
The third season is on Amazon Prime. The
I
first
just
two
got Amazon
seasons
Prime.
are the first two seasons are Actually, I think the first 2 seasons are also on Amazon Prime, but I believe Funimation still has the rights to the English dub.
Oh.
So Amazon Prime, there is no English for the season 3. I don't know if they are going to make one. One of the shows that they did get an English dub, but it was on Netflix and on home video, but the home video or home DVD, I guess, else has a different dub because it's a different licensing company for that. It's weird. So some
Goodness.
animes have like multiple different dubs. It's
That's what I'm
confusing.
saying. I get why people pick sub now. If you've got so many different dubs, like that would drive me crazy.
Oh, I
My
enjoy it
OCD.
actually.
Do you?
I do. If there's more than one dub, I'm like, okay, let me compare. Let me see which one I like better. Well, because the one from Netflix dubs are kind of but
Right.
then I would hear the ones that it came out on DVD, and I'm like, that's a lot better. And then we have Kanizuka, who is part of the Enforcers.
Mhm.
So these are people who got their psychopaths so high that they are considered like not treatable anymore. Like there's no way for them to be able to go back into normal society. So they kind of become cops. But there's also what's it called? A pushback. Like
Uh-huh.
they're like, hey, so if you join the enforcers, you're most likely gonna be, so traumatized and stressed out and everything that you may not be able to, go back into regular society instead of,
Wait,
getting
being a
actual
cop is
treatment.
so crazy, is so like
I mean, their
traumatic.
guns explode people
Yeah, okay, okay, I
depending
get
on
it.
how bad they are mentally.
Okay, so Psychopass is the one where okay, I remember you telling me the premise of it. So now it does make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, but Kanizuka, she Kanamori is very, very open, very talkative, and all that stuff. Kanizuka is like the complete opposite. She doesn't talk that much. She always has this calm demeanor at all times. But she is like very smart and everything.
Oh, that's
It's a
awesome.
balance, and that's what I like about them.
Yeah, I totally get I have one of those in mine too. I'll actually go with one of my couples next because it works out perfectly. And I think both of my couples that I have on my list are pretty obvious, but I have Midnighter and Apollo, another Steve Orlando not creation, but he definitely pushed it towards the forefront.
Makes
Midnighter
sense.
and Midnighter and Apollo is so good. Like if you haven't read um anything by Steve Orlando that he's done with these characters, you really should. Even the Midnighter solo series, it's got 2 volumes, I believe. Midnighter is okay, so they're basically Wildstorm's version of Batman and Superman, right? But there's so much more. Like they both were experimented upon. Actually, Midnighter was experimented upon from a very, very young age. So he's all sorts of fucked up in the head, right? And he has this. My favorite part about him is he's got a healing factor. He's got, he's good with his guns, he's good with this, but he has this basically an AI in his head that can map out every single different situation. So he's in a, you know, there's 2 bad guys in front of him, and it can map out 100 different ways to go about this. That way, he knows he can win. And it also can backtrack a little bit too. Like if you go back and do this step instead, then this outcome will have. And it's really, really cool. And he talks to it. Like on occasion he'll talk to it. Like, and we actually had a recent series where he it got taken over by a future AI, and he had to go to the future into the past, and there was 2 different versions of them, but it was really good. But the reason I love these 2 as a couple so much is because they are kind of yin and yang. Like you've got this psycho and the weird, and then you've got the calm and the uplifting in Apollo. And there was a really good series, and right now they're using Henry Bendix in the Son of Kal-El. But he actually has a much better story arc a while back in the Midnighter and Apollo series, and it shows like how evil this man actually is. He took Midnighter, and then Neron took Midnighter. I forget which one took him initially, but or
How dare
Necron.
you not know?
I know, right? It's been a while. But Midnighter had to, and there's these really good points where Midnighter had to go save him. And they have like the, oh my god, my beloved's dying scene. and I think it's the end of issue 3 and 6, but it's opposite. And they have these amazing panel spreads where it's showing that inside of his brain, and it makes no sense on the you have to take your time to look at these splash pages because it's showing all these different versions of what could happen or what you could do. And it's really good. And they're like not your typical couple. And I feel like that's kind of weird to say about any comic book character, but Midnighter is so aloof and kind of the opposite of Bruce Wayne, where Bruce Wayne is very much so like grounded as Bruce Wayne, grounded as Batman, but he plays each role. He enjoys being each role. Midnighter likes being himself, but he fucking loves killing. Like he loves being brutal, and he kind of thrives on it. I'm not gonna lie, I like Midnighter better, but we've even seen him in the more recent. Have you ever seen the Grayson run? By I think it was Tom King, where Dick Grayson was like a like a private agent. Bianca.
Are you talking about the new 52 run?
Yes.
Oh, Grayson. I believe I have one issue of that. Was that written by Tom King? I thought it was written by Tim Seeley or something like that.
Well, the run, I don't know. It just depends on what issue you have. I don't remember exactly. I know Tom King wrote
I just have issue 1, so.
Well, I don't know if Midnighter was in it quite yet then, but he also is in that, and he's teamed up with Dick Grayson. Like, we've seen this dude go from, and I like the Wildstorm characters. I want to see more of these characters in the main continuity, even though I know some people don't like that. Same with Grifter, another really good character, but he's straight, so we don't talk about him today. But Midnighter and Apollo, they deserve. What irritated me when the Pride anthology came out for DC when it was initially announced is that it didn't have like some of the most iconic queer characters. And this was one of them. How do you do a Pride anthology for DC Comics without having Midnighter and Apollo? Like, honestly, that's asinine to me.
Fired. I want them fired, and I want them now.
Right? Exactly. Like, even right now, we're seeing Philip Kennedy Johnson do his Warworld saga stuff. But, like, the not backup, but, like, the subplot of it is Midnighter trying to get to Apollo. Like, the whole thing is driven by his love, even though he's crazy. He's as crazy as they come. But it's completely driven by love. Now, Apollo, I like Apollo. He's a badass. He
Really? I don't know. He looks
I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie, like Midnighter is the reason why I chose these two characters. If it was just Apollo, I wouldn't have chosen Apollo. He's good, he's great, but he tends to play more of the role sometimes of damsel in distress. Like when Neron took him, he was like in a glass bottle, and his whole like big idea was like, guess what? I chose my name. Like, bitch, what? Like, okay, that's your clever idea. Okay, all right, sure. But Apollo, to me, is a little bit of like, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a dick. He's the more like submissive one in the relationship, for sure. For sure. I love him though. They're great as a couple. Apollo is much better as a character when Midnighter is around than he is solo. That's the best way to put it.
I agree. Even though I've never read it. It's just that the way you say it.
So good. I love those two characters. And I think generally they're pretty well liked too. Then again, it could just be, people that I've interacted with, but I think they're pretty well liked as characters. So who do you have next?
I mean, I haven't heard anybody complaining about them.
Yeah, exactly. They're generally, people are like, yeah, I like Midnighter and Apollo, but that John Kent fella, fuck him. Like, usually.
So this one's going to be interesting. This is going to be like 3 people in the same category, I guess. I guess it depends on how you see them, though, because there's still conversation about these characters, and I'm just gonna add them here just because. So I'm going to be adding Diana Prince, Artemis, and Nubia.
I love it.
And I'm like, I can't just choose one. I gotta choose all three of them, like all three of them together. And when I say Nubia, I mean her as the sister.
Yeah, they have the whole new. I didn't even realize it until Nubia and the Amazons. They changed her origin to being like a reborn soul. She's not a sister anymore. I don't like it.
Yeah. I'm like, boo.
I know,
Boo.
right?
But apparently it's like another universe or something like that. Or like an Elseworld or something. Is it? I don't know. I was so
I don't
confused.
know. I haven't really enjoyed the Wonder Woman stuff as of late, anyways.
Understandable.
So why do you like those three?
I mean, ever since I was young, I was a little Wonder Woman fan because of the cartoons and all that stuff. And then, I read her comic from Rebirth. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. And, she's so kind and everything. And then I see Artemis and I'm like, screw Diana.
Artemis is awesome.
And then I'm like Artemis is like the complete opposite. She's like rough and tough. And I'm like, as you can see, apparently that's what I like. That's my favorite character is always. She takes no crap. Even though I don't think they have ever shown her with another woman. I don't know. The only thing I know is that one Earth One comic where Diana kisses her and
then Grant Morrison one.
Yeah, and then
it's so
there
pretty.
was that possible romance with Jason Todd, which would be great.
I know.
Maybe they'll do it in the Red Hood webtoons. I don't know.
Hopefully it's so free. I loved them together, and then it was like a would they, won't they type thing, and then they just dropped that line.
Bizarro's like their kid, which is so weird.
Love it, but he's so cute.
I know. I love it too. I didn't expect him to not be a villain.
Well, yeah, I get it, but I love the sweet moments where he's like, "You Bizarro friend." Like those moments are so cool.
It's like
love
a Groot. It's the Groot
effect.
Yes,
exactly.
And then I added Nubia. I've always been interested in Nubia, like their history and all that stuff. Did I buy? No, I didn't buy it. Okay. And I'm like, well, since she's also on this island specifically now, I guess I'm just gonna add her to the list. And I believe in one of her comics right now, she went on a date with somebody.
Oh yeah, yep.
I didn't read all the way to that part yet.
I did. I read that. The green. I don't remember her name, but she had the more green in her outfit. Yeah.
So I guess for that one is confirmed, but for Artemis or Wonder Woman, unless it's Earth One, there's DC doesn't like to confirm anything with Wonder Woman, which is why she's never in a Pride anthology. See, that stuff.
They like to say she's a queer icon 1 month a year.
Yeah, and it's never on Pride Month.
Like I don't get it. I think she should be, but also I think they did some weird stuff in the new Nubia and the Amazon ones. Like they made Philippus and
Wonder Woman's mom.
Yeah.
Oh, that was hinted since Rebirth.
I guess I never picked up on those hints. Maybe it's
like they would stare at each other and they would talk some stuff, and I'm like, "Are you guys a thing?" Oh no! Oh, okay.
I'm glad to see someone else picked up on it because I was like, "Is this weird? Is this new? Is it?" I'm glad I didn't realize it, but yeah, they made them a thing, and then Philippus has, Nubia is dating one of the other Amazons, and then there was also, I forget, there was a trans Amazon too, and I can't remember her name.
Bia?
I think it's Bia. I was gonna say Bay. Oh my god. Bia, yes. But I'm not gonna lie, I think that story with all of those elements could have worked better with a more seasoned writer. Like all of those can work. Doom's Doorway, everything that they kind of went through with Medusa being a victim and stuff like that. those elements sound really interesting until you realize who they're written by. And I don't necessarily have anything against Vita Ayala, but I'm not necessarily a fan either. I'll just leave it at that. I've been burned too many times. Just too many times. But yeah, I love Artemis, I would say, is my favorite. Even
You only like that one Wonder Woman story from, like, what was it, 750 or something like that?
oh, that
Written
one was
by
so
Vita
good
Ayala.
though. Like, I really, like, I defended her so many times because of how good that was, and it was just like burn after burn after burn after that. And yeah, that one was really good. I forgot about that. But Vita also, was it Vita that did a really good might have been G. Willow Wilson. Never mind. That doesn't make any sense what I was gonna say. I was gonna say a good Poison Ivy story, but I think that was G. Willow Wilson.
She had a one shot?
No, I think it was because next week we've got the new Poison Ivy series coming out. So I think it was her in a urban legend story.
Oh, isn't that by G. Willow Wilson?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was Vita Ayala, but no, I was wrong on that.
Does
But
she have any of her own series? Like, you know how some people have, some writers have their own, like, indies, like James Tynan or...
not that I know of. I think Vita gets so much work that I don't think she would necessarily have time.
How much work did she do this year? Was
I
it
know
really a lot?
Yeah, I know for DC, she did Nubia and the Amazon. She did Static, which Static started out really good. It actually ended kind of mediocre, but to be fair, it did start out really good. I know she did Trial of the Amazons, and I know she did a bunch of X-Men stuff. They're writing a lot of stuff, and they get a lot of hate on sometimes rightfully so. Sometimes it's like, just chill out. Like, you don't have to dissect every word that they say. And I actually seen a video just a couple days ago, just repeatedly over and over and over again, calling Vita retarded over and over again. I'm like, okay, there's a point when you can say, I just don't like their work, and move on with your fucking life. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But yeah, I love
Albert Einstein was retarded, and you know. I'm sorry.
I guess I did not know that. Learn something new every day.
But he had some major disabilities.
Oh yeah, I did know that. Yeah, I'm looking. I don't see anything more on the indie side besides they've got a lot of work at DC and a lot of work at Marvel, but that's it.
Really? What are they working on Marvel?
They did Children of the Atom, New Mutants.
I know nobody likes Children of the Atom.
Yeah.
Very selective people like that one, actually.
Morbius.
There's a Morbius title out?
It says if it's from 2020.
Oh, okay.
The Old Guard. I don't know anything about that.
I've heard of that. I don't remember what it is, though.
Oh, it looks like maybe they've done some work with Kwanzaa on Black and Livewire at Valiant, but that's about it. And I know they did that story about Zatanna and Batman on Urban Legend, and it's kind of the reason why I dropped that title. Like, there was just no good stories.
Did they ship Zatanna and Batman?
Yeah. You've never seen that shipping before?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I know about it. It's a good pairing.
It's an okay pairing. It's an okay pairing. It's not bad. It's not Talia, but it's not bad.
It's not Wonder Woman, but it's not bad.
Wait. I didn't say any of that. But yes, good choices. So, speaking of Zatanna, my next pick is Constantine.
Oh.
I love he's the one example. He is the one example. Okay, there's a couple examples, but you always, whenever I talk about bisexual characters, there's always this massive pushback that, bisexual means gay, which it doesn't. But there's always generally dudes going, well, they'll never be with a girl again. And that's why I love Constantine, because that's all I have to say. Like, Constantine is a little bit of a whore, and I love him for it. But he he just indiscriminately sleeps around. Like, I love him and Zatanna together. I do. But I also love him and Lucifer together. Like, Constantine is kind of one of those dudes that works with anybody if he's drunk enough. I'm just saying.
Harley
And
Quinn.
oh wait, no, take that back. Anybody but
It was that joke from that Apocalypse movie. Yeah, like they're trying to find like other people, survivors, whatever. He's with Raven, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's my ex," and she was like, "Harley Quinn." He's like, "Are you crazy?" No, King Shark.
yeah, I know people were so mad. I remember that. That's so good. Yes, see what I mean? He works with everybody, and I love that. Like, he can't be one of those where everyone's like, "Oh my god, they made Harley Quinn gay. They made her gay. They made her bi." No, Constantine, from his very earliest creations was hinted at that he likes males and female.
And
And
apparently it was never understood because I remember looking at there's always lists of like top tens, top tens, top tens. I remember looking at
right.
it a very, very, very long time ago. And one of them was like Constantine. And then people would argue in the comments, like, Constantine was never LGBT. He's always been straight. It was never hinted at. It was never quote unquote coded, et cetera, et cetera.
What? Like, in one of his
I don't know
earliest
the comments
books.
saying that.
Oh, I know, but in one of his earliest books, he's sitting at the table and literally mentions liking men, but they couldn't show it obviously back then, because it was the 90s and they did some stuff right and some stuff so very wrong. But it was early. It was very early. So I don't. A lot of times, either people just don't remember it or they're just misinformed. But yeah, Constantine, I hate. So he always has this part, like, the Batman joke where somebody's talking to him and he turns around and he's gone.
Yeah.
Constantine has one of those too, but it's Tyne like fine. But I still always say it wrong. Like, I feel stupid saying Constantine, even though I know that's how it's supposed to be.
Constantine.
It's weird. Did you
Say
ever
it
see
with
that?
the accent.
But I sound even dumber.
But you use the accent for Born of Blood.
Yeah, but this one was really bad. We'll talk about that in private. Did you ever see the Constantine movie?
What was that name? House of Cards or something like that?
No, the actual Keanu Reeves one.
Oh,
it's so bad.
I didn't plan to. Like, I would think I was at a party or something, or I was visiting somebody with Keanu Reeves. It's a Constantine. I didn't say Constantine. I said Constantine, but I'm saying Constantine. And I'm like, well, I might as well watch it since it exists. And I'm like, huh. So weird.
I know, like, it's not a bad movie if it didn't have the name, but like, it is nothing like the character in the comics. And I think the only reason it even worked is because Keanu Reeves has that like cool effect, right? Like, there's a few celebrities that have that effect, and Keanu Reeves is one of them. He can kind of make the dumbest things seem cool.
Yeah, that's how you describe him.
So who do you have next?
I guess this is the last person on my list.
Your last one.
I'm pretty sure people are not gonna like that I chose this person, especially since of what you said.
Oh no!
I'm like, oh, I thought differently. So it's Jonathan Kent.
Yes! I'm so glad you chose him.
So, I've read him since Super Sons, so I do have like a connection with him in some way. He was such a cute, adorable little boy, and I hate kids. But I'm like, I love this dynamic. He's just so cute and sweet, and he wants to do good. For Taylor's run, it's still the same thing. He wants to do good, but he seems to want to do it in his own way, in a different way, in a way that what he thinks is right, which could be wrong or could be right. Like there was that one time when he was with the protesters and then he got arrested,
Yeah.
but people were angry that he was with the protesters, and I'm like, I don't, he wasn't doing any harm,
Yeah.
but so I don't think it should be a problem. You know, he wasn't attacking anybody from what I remember. And he was just so happy that he went to jail, and he's like, I did something and I went to jail for it. The reason I liked it was because it kind of reminded me of shoot, no, please don't escape from my brain.
I hate that.
Oh
I hate
no,
that.
she was my favorite. She's my favorite too. She's one of my favorites. I can't. Oh no. Okay. Oh, so I'm gonna have to go to you for guidance. Okay. That black woman who did not want to go to the back of the bus. Please tell me you remember her
Rosa
name.
Parks.
I knew it. I was like, it's Rose something. What was her last name?
Parks.
I was thinking about a different celebrity. And I'm like, so Rosa Parks has always Rosa Parks and Frederick Douglass have always like resonated with me in some way.
Mhm.
I've always loved hearing their stories and all that stuff. So like she was like, hey, I don't think we should be in the back of, only in the back of the bus. I want to stay in the front. She didn't fight back. It was a form of protest, and she went to jail for it, I believe. And so that's what it kind of reminded me of. They're not doing any harm. It was illegal. I believe it was illegal protesting in the comic. And you know, they went to jail doing what they believed was right, and I personally didn't see a problem with that. Especially when I didn't see a problem with him defending refugees either.
Yeah,
Uh,
me either.
I mean, like, how many Hispanic Latinos are immigrants, and you go over there, and it's like, okay, so what if this was like my mother's people or my father's people, and you have
Right.
somebody defending you for your right to stay because where you live, like the economy is just so bad, or police are run by gangs. It's a dictatorship, whether it's right wing dictatorship or left wing dictatorship. You know, it's terrible over there, and you want
Right.
to leave to go to a safer place where you believe you are going to be okay, only to be thrown out and say go back.
Yeah.
So like I was taking into that perspective because I personally didn't have that type of perspective before, and so I'm like, okay, definitely should have that type of perspective because a lot of my family members do have that type of perspective, and so I'm like, okay, I should like be a little bit more open minded, try to see it another way, and why people are affected by it. You know, I remember hearing a George Lopez comedy stand up on Netflix or whatever, and he was like, you know, people who were like Hispanic, Latino, that were in the military, they fought for the country. You know, they
Right.
fought for America, and they were still deported.
That's
And
fucked up.
and I didn't hear about that. I'm like, what? And I'm like, but they fought for the country. They did it for
Yeah.
a long time. Why would you just deport them? They're willing to fight for, you know, America and not for their own country because it's just so bad over there. Why take them out, you know? And I kind of have that same thing over here. Like when he talks to his father, when he talks to Clark, I kind of see him myself in him when I talk to like my family members or my
Mhm.
cousins or something like that. But it's not in a disrespectful way. It's like in a playful way or like in a curious way. And that's how I saw him talking to his own dad. And
Right.
there's like, yeah, I'm not talking about the LGBT part of him so much, but that's because that's kind of the reason why I like the character. Like he is bisexual in this comic, but it's not the forefront because in the comic is more about the issues going around than him being in a relationship, which he seems to want, but he can't be focused on it at the moment because
Right.
stuff keeps happening, like assassination on his grandparents.
No, and you know what I love about that book so much, and it's something that I applaud Tom Taylor for doing, is he's fighting. You see a lot of it where John is fighting injustice instead of necessarily crime.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty original in nature, and I also feel like that also could be some of the pushback because it gets a little bit more heavy-handed, to some people when it comes to those certain issues, but fighting injustice in a comic book is so hard to do, and Tom Taylor pulls it off.
I believe he pulls it off too, and so that's why I'm like, I have not been. I mean, I can see how some of the writing can be bleh, depending on some of the issues,
Right.
but it's like it's an overall enjoyable series for me.
Have you got to the issues yet with Nightwing?
Nah, no way near.
I
I'm a
wondered,
slow reader.
they're so sweet, like, so sweet. They are you get a lot of the breakdown of John Kent, and Dick is kind of there bringing him back up, and it's really, really well done in that I could have said giggity for, but I absolutely I love that book. I think it's so good, and I think a lot of people are turned off initially just because of the controversy around it instead of giving it an actual real chance.
Which sucks because again, I believe I read all the way. When I say I'm behind, I'm behind. Like I believe the last thing I read was when he got like so stressed out
Ah, okay.
that he couldn't control his powers or something like that. Like that's very
Yep.
early, very
Yeah.
very early. So so I'm like, okay, so him being stressed out and like realizing this is bigger than what he actually thinks is going to be one of the issues in this kind of story.
Yep,
And
and that
so
that
I'm
carries
hearing
over.
that they do talk a lot about it in the Nightwing crossover, so
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm super excited.
It's so good. I really, really like it. Um, and there's a lot of building up that Dick helps do just because he's so down on himself. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, it just gets better. I promise. It just gets better. Kind of obviously so. I have Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, oh wait, no, that's your ninth one. I mean, that's your fourth one. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be at the ending.
Yes, and I have to. Um because they're so I love this couple. And for a very long time it took me to win over the Harley stuff because I loved Harley with Joker. I loved not okay, this is going to sound really wrong, but I mean it in the best way possible. I loved seeing Harley Quinn as his punching bag because it's extremely like oh, how do I say this? It's extremely toxic. It's extremely fucked up. But because you get to see her as a punching bag for so long, you finally get to see that arc where she's like, yeah, fuck you. Like, you get to see her finally come into herself. And then you add the romance on top of it. And Harley Quinn's so naive and so sweet that she still kind of wants attention, whether it's from boys or girls. She still wants that. And Ivy's so jaded, she doesn't want any of that. She likes Harley, but don't push it even for her. So it's another one that, like Midnight or Apollo, where they're yin and yang. They work together because you have happy and jaded. And at some point, the happy has to be, Ivy has to look at her and be like, look, calm down. Not everybody is trustworthy. But in the same aspect, you have Harley being able to look at Ivy and go, look, not everything's, so pessimistic. And they work off of each other really well. The only problem I have here is DC Comics. Because again, like we talked about with Batwoman, they love to break them up over and over and over again. Like they did it in the Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy series where she became two different entities. They did it in 70 Phillips Harley Quinn series, and now we've got her going off at I don't God knows where in her own run for G. Willow Wilson. I don't think that there's necessarily anyone that can argue. I do see the argument against this couple, like, oh my God, retcon lesbians. You know what I mean? But I think generally the most people like this couple and would like to see them even like, I would love to see Margot Robbie tackle this idea of bringing in Poison Ivy into the DCEU. Like, I could see Margot Robbie's so talented, in my opinion. There's not a lot of people, like, you know, when you're super close to a character, so you're extra, like, protective, so to speak. That's how I am with Harley Quinn. And I can't see anybody else playing her as well as Margot Robbie. So if you can bring in somebody, even, you know, even in the first movie, it doesn't have to be romantic. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Just introducing that friendship aspect that we've seen in the animated series, which was so good, and then introduce it and make it a longer thing. It could be like, you know, Lois and Clark, the power couple. It is, I don't know. I love it. I also wanted to add Catwoman into this list, but I couldn't because, you know, there was just too many people. But I know Bianca loves Catwoman. I figured it'd be on her list, but yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
gross.
Harley and Ivy are by far the most superior couple, not LGBTQ couple. I mean, any sort of couple at DC Comics. I implore you, try to name a better couple. See, you can't. I knew it.
Wonder Woman, Batman.
No, I knew it. And I get it. Like, people say Lois and Clark or MJ and Peter
Spider-Man.
Parker.
Peter Parker. Ugh.
But, like, yeah, sure. If you want super vanilla and boring, fine. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure people like Black Cat with Peter.
yes. See, that's a better couple because there's a little bit of less just there's a little danger there, right? And you always have a little danger with Harley.
What about
Like,
with Silk?
Silk. Wait, they're a
Silk?
couple too?
Well, no, apparently they were bitten by the same radioactive spider, and that kind of like whenever they got near each other, they would just like constantly like make out and have sex. It was like some sort of attraction.
I didn't
they
know
couldn't-
that.
It was weird.
I had no idea, but that is funny. At least it makes it a little bit more interesting. That's where I get bored with the Lois and Clarks of the world because it's like, oh god, yeah, cool, like, yay, you know, same humdrum thing. Well, this is comic books we're talking about. You can't have boring or you lose readership. And Harley and Ivy are far from boring. Plus, the only one thing I would like to see come back for Poison Ivy that they don't utilize like they used to is like her Venom kiss. Like, her seductress side is fucking awesome. Like, just bring that back, bring the relationship back, and you've got a perfect fucking mini there.
That reminds me, I finished Batman and Robin the other day.
Batman and Robin or Robin and Batman?
Batman and Robin, the movie.
Oh, the movie. Okay. What'd you think?
Funny, I remember watching it and I'm like, oh, this is crap. I'm watching it again. I'm like, this is not as crap as I thought it was, especially since I'm continuing with the Batman marathon. And I'm like, okay,
Wait,
so
the live action movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, go ahead.
so Batman and Robin is definitely better than Batman Forever by far.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what could be a worse movie than Batman and Robin? And then I saw Batman Forever and I'm like, okay, I found it. One of the best looking Bruce Waynes, though, in Batman Forever.
Wait, which one was it? Which actor?
Val Kilmer.
Ooh. Yeah, back then. Now Val Kilmer's a hot mess.
I don't know what he looks like now. I don't want to know.
He's in the Top Gun movie. I do know that. But you think he's better looking than Robert Pattinson? Did you freeze?
No. Thinking. Funny enough, how Val Kilmer was in Batman Forever is what I wanted Bruce Wayne, Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne to look like, but they kept his hair so freaking short, and I'm like, why is your hair so short? Make it like thicker like Val Kilmer's, or like how his hair was in Tenet. Like, why is your hair so short? It looked weird to me.
I just looked up. I guess I did forget how good Val Kilmer looked back then. But
we also have to remember that he didn't that Robert Pattinson's like we only saw him as like Bruce Wayne for like the
Right.
funeral, and he didn't really clean himself up much. So I want to see like a cleaned up Bruce Wayne to see how that would look like.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with you there, just because we're early, it's like year 2 or whatever for Pattinson, so he hasn't even gotten his Bruce Wayne down. But Val Kilmer, he looked very classy. He looked very like that Playboy persona. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot what
And he
Val
had the
Kilmer
best
looked like.
clothes.
Yes, for sure.
Michael Keaton had the worst clothes.
Michael Keaton was
He was wearing dad clothes. I'm like, why are you dressed like my freaking dad? You're supposed to be dressed like a fancy billionaire Playboy guy. Like, what is this? What are you wearing? I'm pretty sure my dad has that exact same shirt too.
Oh my gosh. Michael Keaton's coming back, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Maybe he'll give him better clothes.
Maybe. And maybe he'll be able to move his head, because I'm pretty sure that he couldn't in that batsuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty funny.
I did like the revisions they did for the suit.
For the Batgirl movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks way better. Well, and comfortable.
Yeah, they said he can move his neck. Yay.
That's so important. Crime fighting, you got to be able to move your fucking neck. That's so funny. But yes, guys, we are going to wrap up. Is there anything I missed, Bianca, before we go?
Oh, you didn't hear that in the background, did you?
I heard something. I don't know what it was.
Oh. Okay, so I guess that's good. We'll see in the premiere. Nope, nothing at all. Tell us what your favorite LGBTQ characters are in the comments below. It could be Marvel, DC, or
anything.
Even indie comics.
That's right. Oh, another one I forgot.
No!
From Cole from Department of Truth, but nobody would have known who he was, so that's all right. He's awesome. That's right. You said indies and it made me think of it. But yes, make sure you guys subscribe to Bianca. Her channel will be in the description. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.